U.S. mail. That's M-A-L-E, son. That's me. Now I said all that.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Bill on Bikes. I have my hot caffeinated beverage here, as I usually do, and something a little different today. We're going to be doing a Legend suspension install. We're going to be putting the rear shocks on this 23 Road Glide that we have sitting here from my good customer John. And I actually have a special guest today, Nick Stofle from Drag Specialties. So Nick, come on over here, buddy. Good to have you. Good to have you, brother.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And Nick has been my drags rep for quite a while now. He took Greg Matter's place. What's Greg's position now at Drags?
National Drag Sales Manager.
National Drag Sales Manager. And just a phenomenal group of guys. Phenomenal company. I don't think I would be able to run my business without Drag Specialties. If you're a Drag Specialties dealer, or if you're not a dealer, you should really rely on these guys. I mean, there are oftentimes I have a suspension question, or I have a handlebar question. There's so many cable kits and everything that's involved, and I'll call Nick. I'll say, Nick, can you help me out? He'll look it up. He calls me, tells me the part number. Sometimes he'll even order it for me if I ask him to do that. And it's an extension of my business. Where I'm a one-man show, I can't even tell you how invaluable that is to me, because it saves me time and I always get the right parts every time. So again, you know, really rely on your drags reps. It's great. And Greg Matter, of course, who was originally my rep, and he's the one that got me introduced to Legend suspension. He came here one time with Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse.
Working shop, the compressor's on, happens all the time. It's just the way it goes. We're gonna stand by to stand by. I originally had met Jesse Jerns, who was the founder of Legends.
Yep.
He came here for a ride, I want to say 2014 or so, with Greg Matter.
Yep.
And he said, hey, you know, I have this Legend suspension on my bike, go take it for a ride. I rode it around the neighborhood, sold.
Yeah.
I came back, I couldn't believe.
Immediate difference.
Immediate difference. And you have to remember, the pneumatic air shocks, which Harley introduced back in 1980. Remember that, guys, 1980. They ran those through 20, let's see, the Russian ones came out in 14. They still ran them on like the road kit. So 16 or so.
Yeah, I mean, they were on my 2005 Road King. So yeah.
Awful. I mean, there are, we have a lot of drainage, I guess you call them ditches or whatever, that run across the road here in Phoenix, because we have a bad issue with runoff from rain. And you see those coming up and you're kind of like, oh, you know, and it hurts your back. You run over those things with this suspension, and it's like, you want to start to aim for the thing,
right?
Because it's so smooth, it's incredible.
So that's kind of the story I had. Is I had this 05 Road King I've had for probably about 5-6 years. Stock suspension, did some stuff to it. Well, was able to get some Legends front and rear. I did this exact setup, but for my 2005 41 millimeter fork. And I'll tell you, as soon as I got it done, put it on the bike, went down the street, and noticed on the freeways I would brace for those impacts.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when I hit it with the Legends, I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
But on the stock one, I remember bracing for it, so I started bracing for it and I didn't feel it. And I was like, wow, this is different, you know? So definitely a great improvement in ride quality. I mean, that was the first thing I noticed, is that those big drainage ditches, you don't feel them like you do with the stock suspension when you're on the Legends front and rear. So I had that exact same feeling, and that epiphany went off, you know, when I was riding down the freeway. Well, I don't need to brace for these anymore. It's actually comfortable. So.
Yeah, and I went through the same experience last year. I installed a set of the Legends new soft tail suspension that they have.
The monoshock.
And I'm telling you, I could not believe the difference. It rode like a Cadillac.
Night and day.
I mean, night and day. Anybody that has an older soft tail, not the new monoshock style, I encourage you to purchase those shocks, and you'll thank me. Your back will thank me. I'll tell you that right now.
Right,
so anyway, Nick, let's talk about what we have here.
So basically what we have here is, this is going to be a front and rear setup for 17 and later FL models. This is a 13-inch rear shock with a remote reservoir. Carries a little extra oil, cools a little better, and a little better performing. Also fully adjustable damping and rebound on this shock. This here is the new mounting system. They originally would mount them down low in between the bags, but since the fascias have come out, they've decided to go with an upper mount that goes onto the on the sides of the fender, and basically will hold the reservoirs. And looks kind of cool because they sit right here on the back of the bike. So not only do you have the performance shock, but you got the look of a performance vehicle. So Legend has changed a little bit the way they package these. A couple years ago, they had kits basically with a spacer in them to accompany a 21 or a 23, and you would order the specific kit for that. Well, then I guess it's probably been a year, maybe 2 years now. They changed the setup to where you can buy either a performance, and they released last year a comfort cartridge setup. It's a little softer, so for the guys that are doing a lot of touring that complained about it being a little too stiff, because this is a performance aimed front end, they came out with a little comfort one, so it's a little softer. You get a little bit of dive on the braking, but not nearly as much as stock, where with the performance one, it eliminates that dive. But basically, these are cartridges that replace all the innards of the stock suspension and give you a much better ride with a quality cartridge in the system. And basically, you've got your performance, which is here because we're doing a performance build on this bike, but you have an option of doing a comfort. And then if you do choose to run a 21 or a 23-inch wheel in the future, or you have one on the bike, then you basically just order the system you want and the proper spacers for those kits. They used to come in the kit, and it would be depending on what you had. Now all the kits are the same. You just add the spacer to whatever wheel size you have.
So that's great information, Nick. But I have a question they had a KO kit.
Yeah.
Is that gone now?
Yeah, so they've eliminated that now, and they're basically, the two kits you'll see is going to be a performance cartridge and a comfort cartridge. And with either kit, you can add the spacers to the kit to make it compatible with a 21 or a 23-inch front wheel. They don't do anything for anything larger than that, kind of staying as close to stock as possible. But once you get that big of a wheel, 26, 28, 30, you're eliminating the amount of travel anyway, so it really didn't design anything for that. But they will accompany any bike that's got a 21 or a 23-inch wheel on the front with the proper spacer added to the kit.
That's great. Now this is why I have a drag truck, because I didn't know that.
Right,
That's
yeah.
already changed.
And they
so.
just changed it. It's
Okay.
been in the last couple of years, but
Okay.
it was in a rolling change. And not to say they changed the system at all, they just changed the way it's packaged. So now you can just order what you want and then the spacer that you need for the wheel. So
Okay.
yeah.
And you did mention the brackets, and I just want to mention something. On the very early canister brackets, there was a recall. It was kind of a thinner band type metal, and they were breaking. So I just want to let anybody know that has that style. You can get a hold of Legends or your dealer who sold them to you, and you'll get a kit like this. These will mount down near off your muffler bracket in the back, and where the rail comes down to the back and attaches the muffler. And these are never going anywhere. So,
Right, yeah.
And that would be free of charge to you. So again, just make sure you don't have those earlier band type brackets, because I have seen them break, and you definitely want to get that fixed.
Yeah, just contact the dealer that you purchased them at originally and have them reach out to the local drag rep, or just have them reach out to Legend. If you got them in a different city and you're not in there anymore, you can always call Legend directly. Their customer service line is great. That's kind of the other thing I want to mention too, is over the past few years, I've really gotten to know everyone over at Legend Suspension, and the people that are there are great people. They've been there since the beginning, most of them. They have a pretty small crew for what they do. I think last time I was there, I want to say there was probably 37 employees. Not a whole lot, what you would think, because of what they produce, but the advantage they have is that they really only produce suspension for Harley-Davidson motorcycles. They haven't ever really delved into anything on the metric side or any of the other models. More recently, the latest thing they're doing is they do have some air systems for utility side-by-sides, and that's brand new this year. But really, the whole time that Legend has been in business, they have focused on Harley-Davidson suspension only. So it's kind of nice where, a lot of the suspension companies kind of have their hands in all kinds of different areas, and not to say that they don't make a quality product, but when you're focused on one thing and you're able to just provide for that one thing, it's it really makes it a lot easier. And like I say, I've never really had any issues. Anytime there's a customer service thing that a question needs to be answered or an issue, Legends is quick to respond and get it taken care of. They're good people, and they do believe in customer service. So one of the things I really respect being in the position I'm in is that it's easy for me to be able to get problems fixed or take care of any issues. It's almost, no effort really needed on my part because they take care of it. So, a lot of good things to say about the people there.
Yeah, really. And sticking with that, this suspension set that you see here is the only return I ever had. They were leaking on one side. Called them up, no issues asked. We'll take care of it. They sent me a new set, and then let me keep the old set for display. That's how great of a company they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is the only set I've had to replace. It was only leaking on one side. You can see it's this one. Just, whatever happened. I mean, seals go. Seals go on new bikes all the time. Sure. I've had that one and only issue. And you mentioned Jesse and how really he got started. He cut his teeth on that air bladder type suspension. Yeah. He's a custom bike builder in the chopper world.
Yeah, and developed that first soft tail air suspension, and seemed like shortly after a lot of the other stuff started coming. So a lot of air systems in the beginning, and all still available for those soft tails, but they pretty much made air for most bikes out there. And then when they came out with the Revo A's and started doing the conventional suspension is where we really saw a big increase in product line. So now they've got air for multiple bikes, and they still continue to do that, but they also have performance suspension. Their book has grown substantially over the past few years. So all the stuff they offer now is a far cry from what it started as at those air suspension systems.
Yeah, really. Yeah, amazing company, South Dakota.
Yeah, they're
American
actually
made.
in Sturgis, American made. The other thing too is, and I don't know that this information really gets out to the public, but Legend sources all their stuff locally. So you see these little Heim joints, these bearings, these, everything that goes into making this shock. I would say 95 to 99% of it is sourced in South Dakota.
That's phenomenal.
Local companies, local all-American made. And there's really not a lot of companies that can say that these days. So,
well, I know one company that can, and that's Harley-Davidson. I remember as a dealer, and I think I've mentioned this in some prior videos, around probably 2003, so the 100th anniversary, the motor company was very proud that 86% or something like that was American made. The Showa suspension and things like that were, I think, some of the speedo and tachometer stuff like that. Yeah. It used to be Nip and Denso. I don't know who it is today, but now I get, let's say, a complete gasket kit, and there's all these different continents represented in there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's I don't know how much American is really in the American motorcycle anymore, which is sad. I would like to see that come back, and maybe it will now with
possibly
the way things are going. So we'll see. So what we're going to do is I think we should get the bags off of this. We'll get a flat jack under it, get the rear wheel so it's just barely touching the bench. We'll get the stock shocks off. And we'll get going with the installation. Really, the most important thing in the installation, obviously, make sure you follow the proper procedure and torque specs, things like that. Make sure you don't have any clearance issues with your hoses. But the sag is super important.
So another thing too that you'll notice if you didn't go to a shop, you ordered from someone, you're putting them on yourself. Let's just say you're the guy that wants to do it yourself. Okay, no problem. The biggest thing you want to keep out for is they've put this red tag on here just to remind you. Legend suspension works on a pivot Heim basically, so you remove the large OEM flat washers before installing. The two things that Legend has told me they see the most often when it comes to issues are people putting these shocks on with the stock flat washer and people not setting the sag properly. So basically, as a general standpoint, on a 12-inch shock, about a ½ inch of sag. On the 13s and 14s, and we're working with 13s here, you want to adjust a full inch of sag into these. But basically, they had to put this tag in there because they couldn't believe the amount of people that were setting up with no sag and leaving the washers on. So don't forget that is very important for these shocks to work properly. If you leave the flat washers on and you don't set the proper sag into the shock, it's not going to work how you want it to. You're going to think that, oh, there must be something wrong with it. You really need to set these things up and follow the instructions, because these will actually pivot on the bike as you're turning. So it allows the shocks to turn as well, so there's no binding on the swing arm, between the swing arm, the frame, and the suspension. So it all kind of flows naturally in those turns. Instead of being locked in with those washers, it's able to pivot around, and per their design makes it work a little better. So two key things: set your sag and don't use the flat washers that come on the bike stock.
That's good information, yeah, because it will restrict the movement. Absolutely. You know, you mentioned flat washers. I'm going to give you a little information. Maybe some of you know this, maybe you don't. So if you look at a modern Harley-Davidson motorcycle, how many lock washers do you see on that bike? Next to none.
Yeah.
The reason that is, there was a study done by a guy named Gerhard Juncker, and that's with a J, J-U-N-K-E-R. He was a German engineer. And in the late 60s, he started looking at like shear points of bolts and vibration tests and things like that. And he designed, it's called the Juncker test. And it's like this table, and they have sensors on it now and everything else, but it'll vibrate at different rates. And if I were to take, let's say, 2 shock bolts. One, I use a lock washer and I torque it to the same spec as I torqued the next one, but I only use a flat washer. If I were to ask you which one would come loose first, obviously you're probably going to say the one with the flat washer.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Really?
It's the one with the lock washer will come loose before the flat washer. And that's why when you look at a modern day motorcycle, now I'm sure this is probably the same on cars. I'm not a huge car guy, I don't know what's going on with that world, but lock washers are almost eliminated. If you even look like at all stabilizer links and things like that.
All flat washers.
All flat washers. And
Wow.
that's the reason.
Never knew that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, I know it through my forensics business. I think in 2014 or so, I had a big case, and I had to write a very extensive report. I can't say much about it because, you know, I signed these non-disclosure agreements. Yep. I do a lot of that throughout the year, and pretty amazing what's out there. Of course, you know, these young engineers and stuff out there, I'm sure they all know about it, but the average guy and the average technician would have no clue.
Yeah, probably wouldn't even pay attention to it.
No. And we'll get into Loctite too on the installation. Most guys, you know, you don't install the Loctite properly. You know, you don't apply it correctly. You use way too much. You put it at the end of the bolt.
Bolt gets seized in
Yeah,
there.
it gets seized. It can hydrolock as it's going in. You know, you get that airlock in there, and the pressure will build. I've seen guys crack cases before, heads. Sure. I mean, so we'll show you the proper way to put the Loctite on too. So I guess we're ready to go with the installation. Nick's going to help me, and stick around and let's get going.
I'm a U.S. male because I was born in a Mississippi town on a Sunday morning. Now, Mississippi just happens to occupy a place.
Okay, guys, back to our installation. A couple things I like to do before I install the shocks. I always set the compression and the rebound the same. I like them. I start out at 3, sometimes 4. Again, if you want to make sure you do both sides evenly, go down the road, test ride it, and you know, you can adjust it from there. Also, I always check the spherical bearings, make sure they move freely. And another thing I like to do, because my eyes are getting old, is a small little indentation here on the spring that we use for our adjustment. And I take a little white paint. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. Yeah, I like to put it inside that for the adjustment, and then I do the same on this side. And then I also, before I get going, I like to take a quick measurement. You know, again, these are assembled by human beings, so we want to make sure that they are exactly the same. So I'll go from like the top of the adjuster to a point on the shock. So I got a 1/2 inch there, and I will come check it on this side to make sure we're starting in the same place, exactly a 1/2 inch, so we're good to go. I've had some, you know, it can be out a couple turns. It's okay. So Nick, why don't you bring over what's in the hardware package?
So basically, this is your hardware kit that will come with the rear suspension. This is the mounts that actually go underneath and all your hardware. So you've got these mounts. Again, these will come with the purchase of the suspension. And then you've got all your hardware and spacers in that kit as well. So I'm going to lay this out for you here, Bill.
Awesome.
You can use these, absolutely. Definitely a great mount. This is the new redesigned mount, a lot thicker and a lot more material than the one that they had the recall on. So this is what will be replaced if you do the recall. We actually opted for a different setup. So what we are going to end up doing is we're going to install the new billet mounts. Now these are a separate purchase. They do not come with the rear shock. You will have to buy these separate. But what a clean look. It puts the shock mount, the reservoir up on top. You can really see that reservoir, and it seems to be probably the most popular position for those reservoirs these days is up top where they can be seen. So really nice billet mount with the Legends logo on it. And we're going to be using this instead of the stock mounts that come with the bike or the shocks.
I always like to separate my hardware so I see what I have going on here. Okay, again, we're going to use the stock factory bolts. We're going to use blue Loctite as specified. So, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of guys just don't apply Loctite correctly. What you want to do is 2 drops. Don't have it on the end of the bolt here because that way you can just hydro lock the bolt, which is not a good thing to do. 2 drops, I usually start about 2 threads up the bolt, 1 drop, 2 drops. That's all you need. You don't need more than that. The Loctite will hold just like it's supposed to, and you won't have any issues. So we don't want to run the stock factory washers, and this kit comes with spacers. Thicker spacers go on the back side of the shock, and the thinner ones go towards the front. Again, make sure you run the right spacers because you want to have the movement in the shock absorber so it can rotate. And what I'm going to have to do here is jack this up slightly. And again, we want our thin washer and thicker washer to the inside. 2 drops of Loctite, all you need. 2 drops is sufficient. And Nick, if you could, I'm going to have you jack this up a little bit over there for me, buddy. Oh, it's so nice to have some help. Hey, there's the compressor again.
Perfect timing.
I love it. The torque keys are factory spec, 50 foot-pounds. We'll go do the other side. Again, our 50-inch foot-pounds, not inch-pounds, foot-pounds. I had a guy one time, Nick, who worked for me. I'm not going to mention his name. It was a Saturday morning. We're crazy busy. And I had my benches positioned so I could see all the other technicians. And so what happened was this one guy had just put mufflers on the bike. I'm watching him, and he's done. He's telling me he's done. He's cleaning the bike, and I'm watching the muffler rock back and forth. I remember my father's girlfriend at the time, Diane, ended up being his wife, but I said, Diane, come here a minute, I want to watch this. So I said, hey, and I mentioned his name. I said, you done with that? Yeah, okay. You sure you torqued the clamps? Yeah. Did you get new ones? Because we always give these band clamps on mufflers just so you guys are a one-time use, so you know. If you try to reuse them, the mufflers will end up moving on you. So he said, yeah, I'm done. And I'm watching the muffler literally move back and forth. I said, hey, make sure you put 40 foot-pounds on that? He goes, 40 inch-pounds. I said, really? I said, go get a service man. He gets a service man. Because now he wants to argue with me. I'm already getting PO'd, right? So obviously he didn't have them torqued correctly. Wanted to argue. So I remember running in the office. And my father sitting there at the desk said, I can't deal with it anymore. He's gone. Yeah. And I told him what happened. Diane wrote his check and down the road. I said, I'm done. I can't deal with it anymore. But it's just crazy what some people do. You know, there's a big difference between inch-pounds and foot-pounds.
Oh, yeah.
12 inch-pounds to 1 foot-pound.
You kind of need to know what you're working with.
You got to kind of know what you're working on and what you're working with. But that's like common sense, right? 40 foot-pounds on a clamp, not 40 inch-pounds.
Yeah, unfortunately, common sense is
I mean, it would just
common.
gone, boom, click, I'm done. I
Yeah.
mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, common sense is, I don't know. Seems to be
It's a lost art.
Non-existent. Yeah, lost art. Anyway, all right, that's just a quick story. Hey, make sure you guys are liking and subscribing. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, Nick and I are going to be able to do more of these videos together. I'm really hoping over the next 4 to 6 times a year.
Yeah, and at least bring in some products and kind of go over what you know what we're doing with it, just to give you a little more information on where you're spending your money and the companies that you're dealing with.
Right, and another thing I want to mention, probably a year and a half ago or so, Drag Specialties redid their website. It's phenomenal. There's product information, instruction sheets. I mean, there's videos. It's
constantly improving. I think there was even an email this morning that in the next couple of weeks there's going to be another improvement. on the website. Now they're also trying to make it user-friendly for the dealership as well. So not only for the employees to be able to go in and do all their stuff, but they're going to add some elements to the website that enable you to go in and see more information and get more out of it. So really working for the website to be all-inclusive so everyone can do anything they need on it.
Right, and when you mean all-inclusive from, we have a back end that the dealers can get into, or the retail side, where you can go on, look, see what you want, write down your part numbers, and then you get a hold of a Drag Specialties dealer, and you're able to order your parts, because they don't sell direct to the public.
No, so anyone in public can go onto the website, dragspecialties.com, look up parts and information. It will just display the retail pricing because Drag Specialties distributes only to certified dealers. So you can't just buy product from Drag and have it shipped to your home, but you can support your local drag dealer by going into the shop. You can have your part numbers ready on the stuff that you looked up and really kind of design what you want to do, bring it into your local Drag Specialties dealer, and they can get that stuff ordered in here in a couple days.
Great, and you can order stuff like these phenomenal Legends suspension components that we're installing today, and let's get back to it. Okay, we're ready to install our remote reservoir brackets. This is a separate kit. Nick, how much did you say this kit?
Those run
retails for?
$350.
$350, and they do not come in the shock kit.
No, you'll get the standard mounts, the big standard mounts in the kit, so you can still mount them down below, but if you want to do the billet reservoir up top, you have to buy that separate.
Which is kind of the in thing now. Everybody wants to show their shock. So again, couple drops of blue Loctite here. And I usually start 2 threads up from the end of the bolt. And there's some spacers, a long spacer, which obviously goes in here, and then the shorter spacer for here. So let's get these mounted up. They give us a torque spec for these there, Nicolas Cage? Probably 15 to 18 foot-pounds, I would assume.
I would say 15 foot-pounds.
About 15, alrighty. I always call him Nicolas Cage. It's funny too when I call you and you give me, I get your answer machine.
Yeah.
And you have your drag rep number. I always say, this is for prisoner number. You always
Yeah.
They're probably like, this guy's nuts. You should know that by now.
That's why I keep coming back.
Okay,
We're
well,
the same.
that says something about you. A little bit of vibration back here. Not bad. These new bikes are so nice, aren't they?
They're pretty smooth compared to what the past had.
They're pretty smooth.
A whole different beast.
Yeah, it's a whole different beast. Another thing that comes in the kit. These are not for your truck or your car, as I have been informed. These are actually for the shock canisters.
Yeah.
These are the sticker that goes over. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit. ID Red, which is a cleaner I use in the shop, but we'll clean the canister up. Make sure we don't have any residue on here.
Legends does offer different color stickers if you're trying to match the theme of a bike, or you've got a different color that you want to match up. You can always order those through the site or go to your local Drag Specialties dealer to get those as well.
That's cool. And I've decided we're going to go down with the hose like this. So I'm assuming our L will face us like this, and we will try to get this installed correctly. Were we going to run like that, or were we going to? I thought we were going to run
All
to
the
the back.
pictures were showing.
Yeah, like this.
Oh,
with
yeah,
the hose, with the hose to
Yes.
the back, like that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's how
And
we're
the
gonna
L
do
right
it.
here.
With the L there.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to hold that for me?
Absolutely.
So if we get this centered the best we can. Usually the way I do stickers, I peel off half and get half started, and then
That's the easiest
peel
way
the
to
back
line
and
it up.
try to get the air bubbles out. So we'll go pull it halfway, and then I will fold this over. See if we can get our L here lined up. So pretty close, you think there, buddy?
Looks good to me.
Is this the blind leading the blind right now?
Right.
Oh, help us.
How many guys does it take to install a decal?
2.
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh, that's what perfect is good enough. If we can get it on here perfect. Let's see. I got to make Jesse proud.
Yeah.
While we're doing this, what is his position at the company now?
He's still the founder, original founder and owner. Not sure if that is going to change anytime soon. I don't think so. He's really been at all the events, and I see him every time we do any kind of event with Le Mans. So,
Okay.
other than that, haven't heard if there's anything different or changing. But as far as right now, he is still the owner and founder of Legend Suspension.
Okay. I know it's not the best camera shot. You're looking at my back. I'm trying to do this so you can see how I'm doing this here, but I can see why they don't put these on, because depending on how someone wants to position their canister, it could be totally different. I get that. Oh, well, the hose is in the way there. Let's rotate that out of the way. That's not too bad for...
Looks good to me. I like it.
Don't try this at home, even though if you buy these, you're gonna have to try it at home. All right, so our shock is gonna mount like this, our reservoir. You wanna hold that, buddy, for a sec? And I am going to get a little, that's gonna be different Loctite that I like to use in the shop. What I like to use is the 222 low-grade purple. Good for really smaller screws like this. A lot of shops I see don't actually use this, but it's really good.
You don't see the purple too often.
No, it's actually harder to get. But,
well, and again, you don't really see Loctite products.
Right. And I tend to order 10 bottles at a time because I go through so much of it. But
so purple's lighter than blue?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's purple is great for a screw that you want to be able to move. A really great application for it, S&S, E, and G carburetors on the mixture screw.
Oh.
Dab of that, because a lot of times prior to them putting an O-ring in there with a small washer, they would leak air.
Oh, yeah.
So you put a little Loctite on there that's movable, the purple, it seals it and it works great. But if you have to go in and move the adjuster screw, the mixture screw itself, it's not an issue.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
Little trick.
Yeah. Tricks of the trade.
Tricks of the trade. All right, we're going to slide our bracket on. So let's get that positioned. Now, when you ran these on your bike, Nick, did you put them in the same direction? Did you put this more towards the middle? Did you like it like that?
I ran them like this, but I have an 05 Road King, so the billet mount wasn't available for that year and model. So I ran a different mount, but still ran them facing this way, and I put them right in the middle just because it was personal preference. But obviously on this thing, you don't want to interfere with the turn signal, so we can run these just a little up. Make sure that they don't interfere.
Yeah, we don't want them touching the paint because vibration or anything like that, you're going to damage the paint. So I actually think that looks pretty good right there.
Yeah, centered.
Centered, we'll move this over just a hair.
Pretty close to perfect, I would say.
That looks pretty good. And this is all personal preference. You could do whatever you want.
Realistically, I've seen these canisters mounted either way, depending on what your preference is. I think that this looks great the way it is on here. But really, it's up to your own judgment, so.
And I don't think I'm gonna be able to get in there with that. We're gonna have to use a regular Allen. And we're gonna put a torque wrench on there, and you know what? Probably, I'm gonna think maybe 60 inch-pounds max on that. And just to be safe.
Yeah, you don't want those things to rattle around.
Call me Billy Blue Tape, but I don't want to do any damage to the fender, so.
I'm sure you've been called worse.
Much worse. That should work for us. And then we'll work up this side and we'll be good to go. With just one side to go.
One side to go, almost done.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. It's a nice piece. It really is.
And simple install on this stuff too. You know, as long as you follow the instructions and you do everything that's supposed to be done to them, they're pretty painless install.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'm not sure about is he does have a detachable, whether he's running a sissy bar or whatever.
Sure.
Clearance-wise, this may have to be moved.
Right.
Not sure.
And you can, you know, again, flip this around or move it all the way back, reposition the hose, do a number of things, you know, to accompany for the backrest, or if he's got a tour pack, obviously, you know, maybe a little bit different setup.
Have to do something different, but
just as a general, getting them installed and showing how they look on the bike, this is a good place to start. 100
inch-pounds should be good, and that's it. But we'll just install the other side. I think it looks pretty good. What do you guys think?
Looks good and gonna greatly increase the comfort of this gentleman's ride.
Yeah. A little bit skeptical of this hose with the alignment, so that may have to be counterclockwise there a little bit, but
just depending on what he's got for.
Yeah, I don't know what he has for detachable. You know, I don't know what he's running, so he may not even be running anything. Sometimes these guys just
have it just in case.
I'm assuming he is though.
I've got it on mine just in case, but I don't actually have anything to go on it.
Yeah. So if we had to rotate this a little bit, just loosen the screw, rotate it, and lock it down, so it'd be good to go. All right. Well, let's do the other side and let's keep moving.
Another product I'm using today, available through Drag Specialties or your Drag Specialties dealer, is the Clockwork Shineworks, a great cleaning product.
I like it.
It works pretty well. And just so you guys know how anal Bill is, he actually took veneer calipers to make sure that the right amount on both sides, as far as the shock mounted to the billet mount. So these are actually measured to perfection. Also, the antenna wasn't perfect, so he made some adjustments to it to make it fit a little better. But at least you know when you come into this shop, you're getting perfection, and that's the key.
A little better. I would like this to be straight, so I think ideally I would like one of those flexible whips, you know, the short ones we can get. Maybe we could even bring it along the line. Or
a couple options for that. You can do a powered antenna in the fairing, or you can do a little short whip that's a lot more flexible than the stock Harley antenna whip.
Well, as we get this thing cleaned up, we'll get it off the jack. We'll set the sag, and we'll be all set. Nick, why don't you hop on here? We're going to adjust the sag.
Okay.
Show you how to do that. So I just want to show you something. As Nick sits on the bike, you can see how the shocks compress. We want to make sure we set our sag at 1 inch. So take your weight off the seat there, Nick. And we will take our measurement. I go for the middle of each, and I got 13 inches. Okay, go ahead and sit on it, Nick. And now we are at just about 12 inches. So that is pretty much perfect. You want 1 inch with these shocks. So if we wanted to decrease the amount of spring pressure and increase our amount of sag, we would rotate these. In this case, we're going to do one complete turn. So we're taking some of the preload off of the spring. We go to the other side, we'll do one complete turn. The old saying, lefty loosey, righty tighty. So what we've done is taken some of the spring pressure off, some of the preload. Just think about it. If you're tightening it up, you're putting more pressure on the spring. If you're going to loosen it, you're taking pressure off the spring. So go ahead, Nick, and sit on it. It's also good to bounce a couple times. So why don't you bounce it up and down a couple times. Okay, weight off. And now we'll measure again from the center of our bolt. About 12 3/4. So go ahead, buddy, and sit on it. And we're about 11 3/4. So we're about 1 inch of sag. So that's perfect. It is incredibly important to set the sag. Most guys don't do it, and that's where they get in trouble.
Yeah, and even from the people that work over at Legend saying one of the biggest things they get and they see coming back to Legend is just shocks that haven't been set up right. You know, whether washers are left in them or the sag is not set. My representatives over there at Legend say that is the single most important thing is to set the sag properly, because it won't ride how it's supposed to if you don't.
All right, Nick. Well, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as you guys can see, seamless installation on this thing. Was pretty quick, pretty easy, not too bad. One of the things I wanted to bring up though is really the comparison of product. This is what comes on your bike stock, and this is what you can replace it with. You can clearly see the difference, and you know, definitely a huge upgrade. But don't just take my word for it. When you actually ride the bike with the shocks on it is when you're going to notice the biggest difference. So that, and then a couple of things too. Always remember to set that sag. That's going to be one of the most important things you could do on your Legend suspension. And never run those flat washers. Just read the instructions. Take the extra 5 minutes to read through them. Make sure you're doing it correctly, because it's going to benefit you in the end.
Yeah, and I really think the most difficult part of the job for me was putting the stickers on the canister to get those straight. It was nice to have an extra set of hands here, because usually I'm alone.
Yeah.
And, let's talk suspension and the stock suspension for a second. So, as many of you know, there's the racer, the Bagger Racing League.
BRL, yeah.
I call it the Land Yacht Racing League, because I just personally can't get into it. I'm a MotoGP guy. Art and motion. I mean, what those guys do what they do is just incredible. So for years, Nick, nobody did much with suspension.
Not a lot of options. Maybe
No.
one or two companies had something out there.
Yeah.
Which, was it an improvement? Maybe slight.
Yeah.
But the fact that now they're actually getting all the data back from these bikes on the racetrack and really making a focus on improving the suspension and some of the different areas of the bike that were really kind of left out for the past 20, 30 years, right?
Yeah, that's all really thankful to the Bagger Racing League and the technology that's going into that. I know Dyno Jet's got some stuff going on. Aren't they part of the Screaming Eagle race team now too? That's coming out. Mm-hmm. I mean, so the performance side of it, because of that racing league, is really it's pretty phenomenal, actually.
It's opened up a whole new area for guys like us that ride Harleys, but never really had the companies backing the product to get a comfortable ride or a performance suspension on the bike. It was something that was never really heard of, even 10 years ago.
Yeah, and one question I do get by a lot of customers: do I do the rears first? Do I do the fronts? Do I both together? Ideally, you would do both. But what I will ask them, well, you're looking for comfort, you're looking for performance. If you're the kind of guy that likes to, head into the twisties and hit the front brake and nosedive that front end, you want to probably do the front suspension first. If you're like most of my customers, you're riding 2-up, you go on trips, you want comfort. Then in that case, I say, let's do the rear suspension first, and we'll go from there. I would say 85–90% do rear shocks first.
Yeah, I think too the side of that is that once you do the rear shocks and you go ride that thing, you're going to be back shortly for the fronts because it's such an improvement over stock. And when you actually sit on the bike and ride the bike with the new suspension on it, you're probably the first thing. And I would say 9 out of 10 people that do rears end up coming back within a couple months to do the fronts.
Yeah, and that's usually what I find in the shop. Again, the quality of the Legends, just the brackets that we installed here. I mean, what'd you say the retail on these?
They're $350 for the setup.
$350, but you know what? You get what you pay for. That is a quality product. It really is. A far cry from just the band clamps that we had there that didn't work out.
Hose clamps.
Yeah, and these are the updated clamps, especially if, like I mentioned earlier, if you're involved in that recall, make sure you check. And these are available to you. These would be free of charge.
Absolutely.
So just make sure you get that checked out. Again, I can't thank you enough, Nick, for everything you've done for me, what Drags does. I want to do some more content in the future with you and with Drags. So please put in the comments, give me some suggestions. Performance work, fueling, tires, brakes, discs. What do you want to look at? Handlebars. We will. We'll get some product in. We'll talk to Greg, see what we can get approved, and shoot some more videos.
Yeah, if there's anything in particular you really want to see or have any questions on, just leave it down in the comments. That way we can get to it, and hopefully we can get it all together and get an episode up for you guys that has that stuff in it. The other thing too I want to mention is Legend. It has a huge area of information on their YouTube channel. If you have any questions that go beyond what we've done today, please visit the Legend YouTube channel or their website, legendsuspensions.com. And anything that you may have can be answered there, or visit your local Drag Specialties dealer. We definitely want to not take away from shops here like Bill's got. I mean, this is kind of what makes this whole business go around and revolve, and we just appreciate the fact that there's guys like you out here doing it. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. And I really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time on Bill on Bikes. We'll see you later.
I said all that to say all this. I've been watching the way you've been watching my mess for the last